Hello and welcome to this Blender tutorial. Today we're going to be creating that Lego fluid effect that is seen in the Lego movie and other Lego short films. I'm not sure if it's shown in the Lego Batman movie, but yeah, let's get right into it. So first of all, what you're going to want to do is delete both the cube and the lamp. Highlight them like this and then press X and delete. And then you're going to want to add a cube and we'll scale this up a bit. So press S to scale, then 3 to scale it up by 3, and then just click to confirm that. Next we'll start adding fluid to this. Make this a fluid simulation. So over here, down here in the physics section, this little orbit planet thing, go ahead and click fluid and then set the type to domain. So now we need something that will emit fluid into our scene, so just Shift A, add anything, so add a UV sphere. Yeah, if you don't want to do Shift A, if you don't want to press that, just click up here, click add, and it's the same menu. So let's move this up a bit, so press G to move, or you could go over here and press this and just move it up like this. So yeah, move it up a bit, maybe scale it a bit, and that will start emitting particles into our scene. Well, not particles, but fluid. So back to the cube, set the type to domain and set the domain type to liquid, so it will emit liquid into our scene. To carry on seeing what this is showing, go up here and click the wireframe mode. So now we can start our particle emitter to see what this is going to look like. So also set the type to fluid, and this time set it to flow, and set the flow type to be liquid. And that's pretty much all we need to do for this. So now we need to go on back to the particle settings of the domain, our cube, which, oh by the way, this domain, this will be everywhere which the fluid is inside. Keep in mind that this will be stretched upwards towards the end of this tutorial. So if you want to scale it down so it'll be a cube at the end, press S and Z to scale it down, and then just move it in a bit, scale it down a bit. Also make sure that your sphere, whatever you added, is inside, so click G and Z to move it down. Might want to make it a bit smaller, so also click S to make it smaller. Also, if you get stuck and I accidentally don't tell you what I'm doing, I've got all my keys up here to show you. Oh yes, also set this flow type here, this inflow to, instead of geometry, set it to inflow. So now we can go back to our domain settings, use the time scale to about 0.5 just to make the fluid a little slower, and then we can start seeing what this is going to look like. So scroll down to the bottom of the particle settings, and under here, under cache, make sure type is replay, and then when you press play you can see it starts to show what the fluid will be like. This will not be our final mesh, this is just particles to show what fluid will look like once it's there. You may want to add a little more fluid to your scene, So to do that, it's not very hard, just go to your sphere and press S to make it bigger. Make sure the whole sphere is inside your scene, and then set it back to frame 1, and maybe just press one of the settings on here just to make Blender realise that it's changed. So now click play again, and you can see your fluid simulation is working. So once you're happy with this and you've fiddled around with the size of the cube and the size of the sphere, you can start baking the mesh, which means turning it into a mesh instead of just particles. So then we can start turning it into Lego. So when you're ready to start baking this mesh and turning it into a mesh, click on your domain and go down to the bottom, and under cache, set the type from replay to modular. This will get rid of all the particles, don't worry, your simulation is still there. And you can start baking the data. So baking the data basically means it saves the particles and you can start baking meshes out of it. So just click bake data. So once it's done, you can scroll back down the domain settings, and under here where it says mesh, tick that box and open it, and you can click bake mesh. So this is basically creating a mesh for your particles so that you can start turning it using modifiers and turning it into Lego. So once this is done, it might be a little slower for you depending on your computer. So once this is done, we can start messing around with modifiers and turning it into Lego. So once you've got your fluid all set up, first of all, just to make it look that a little bit nicer, you can right click on your fluid and press shade smooth. And then under here, under the object data panel, this green triangle, go to normals and press auto smooth. This basically smooths out, doesn't smooth out the sharp edges, but smooths out the less sharp edges. So now we can start turning this into blocks and Lego. So go over here to modifiers, this spanner or wrench as some Americans call it, and click add modifier, and now you're going to add a remesh modifier here. So you'll get some weird looking results at first. Set this remesh from voxel to blocks, and this is what we're going to use to turn it into Lego. So in order to make this look a little better, we need to go into the settings of a modifier. So down here in the octree depth, if you turn this up, this basically shows how much subdivisions is going to go into it. So if you want it to be very big and made out of loads and loads of Lego bricks, set it to a high number like 7 or even 8. But I want mine to be just about this much, about 6, I think is a good number. So once you've done that, you can play through, see if it looks good. And this is pretty much all you need for this step. So now we're going to turn it into Lego rather than blocks. So what you need to do, just click on both of these and press H to hide it, and we'll start modelling a simple Lego block. So press Shift A, add a cube, then press Tab or go here to where it says object mode and switch it to edit mode. It does the same thing, and we can start modelling our Lego block. So first press A to select all of it, so press A, and what you can do, why am I getting so many errors? Anyway, what you can do is you can now press S and Z to scale it up to what you think is about a Lego block height. I don't know the exact dimensions of a Lego brick, but that looks about right. Now go up here to next to where it says edit mode, and this is basically what you select. You have vertically select, edge select, and face select. So go to face select, press on this face and press I to invert it. And this will be the middle of the Lego brick. You know, the stud. So press I to invert it, and also you need to have this add-on enabled. Go to Edit Preferences, go to Add-ons, and search for Loop Tools. It's a default add-on, you don't need to install anything, but just make sure that is checked in order to be able to do this. So once you're here, press right click, subdivide, go down here to this little drop down menu down here and set the number of cuts to something like 3. So now we use the Loop Tools add-on. Right click again and go to Loop Tools and press circle. So this automatically fills it in as a circle. So now, with that still selected, press E to extrude it up. And also, if you have clicked off it and haven't selected it, and you don't know how to select it all at once, you can either press Shift and then select from one at a time, or you can simply press C, select from all, and then right click. So once you've done that, you've basically modelled a Lego brick, very basic Lego brick. But let's now go and model the bottom. So press I again to invert it. It's inset it. Okay. And then press E to extrude it inwards. Like that. And this is how you model a basic Lego brick in Blender. So now, once you've got out of that, right click again, press Shade Smooth, and under Normals, in the Object Data panel, like last time, just once again enable Auto Smooth. And now you can see it Auto Smooth in a much better way. So the less smooth edges, no, the more smooth edges get smoothed out more, and the harsher edges don't get smoothed out. So it just keeps everything nice and clean. So now, add back in your blocky mesh, your blocky fluid simulation. Move this out of the way, and press right. And now go back to your fluid, and in here, in this orange, in the transform menu, in this orange square, go down here to instancing and press vertices. So now we've got to make this Lego brick part of the simulation. So press on the Lego brick, Shift, press on the fluid simulation, and I'll press Control P to parent to object. Right, and you got this really weird thing looking like this. So what that's done is that's puts a Lego brick on every face of this fluid simulation. So now you've got to go and press on the cube and scale it down a bunch, because this is not what we want. So under here, press on the cube and go to and press on the cube itself. Now press S to scale it down, and scale it down so it's about the right size. This is where it starts to look like a Lego brick simulation. So scale it down till it's about the right size. Alright, I'm terribly sorry about this, but this video file which I recorded to show how to do this got corrupted, and I basically couldn't include it in video. So I remade our fluid simulation just now, just so I could show you how to do this, because otherwise your fluid simulation will look completely rubbish. Anyway, you see this weird shading issue we're getting, where it's got all this weird black stuff. That's not supposed to be happening, and this is because objects are overlapping, and these objects are overlapping because of the way they're placed. Because they're rectangles rather than squares, the Lego bricks phase into each other. So the way to stop this is by using a lattice. A lattice is an object which can basically stretch and deform stuff. So press Shift A, mesh, lattice, not a mesh, sorry, just go down from mesh, press on a lattice. So once you've got this lattice, press S, scale it up, make sure that your fluid simulation is inside the lattice. Also, so one thing I didn't cover is how to get fluid simulation into the middle. Basically, click on the cube itself, like you did earlier. So, go over here, down on cube, click on this drop down menu, press cube 001, press Shift S, selection to cursor. And that works. Back to the lattice. This lattice, we've got to give it a bit of resolution vertically. So go to resolution, go to V. No, sorry, not V. W. And set it to something about 6, maybe 8. Set it to something about 8. So now, press on your fluid simulation. Go to your modifiers. Press on the wrench to go to your modifiers. Add modifier, and you need to add a lattice modifier. The object will be obviously our lattice. And so now, I'll show you what this says. So press on your lattice, press tab to go into edit mode, or just go up here, click on object mode and go to edit mode. But now, if we press on one of these vertices and move it around, you see it kind of warps the Lego illusion, but it doesn't warp the blocks themselves. So this is what we're going to use to help us create that look. So what you've got to do is you've got to press A to select this all the vertices, and press S, Z to scale it along the Z axis. So scale it up till that shading issue is gone. And this is why we made our fluid simulation quite short, because otherwise it would have been stretched amazingly long. Look, even still it's stretched amazingly long. Obviously this isn't the fluid simulation I was doing in the video, but it's here, we've got it. Yeah, it's massive. So for shading, go over here at these top bars here and press on the shader editor. So now we can start giving our Lego water simulation colours that, you know, look like a Lego water simulation. So what we want to do is we want to press tab to go out of edit mode, and don't press on our fluid simulation, but under the fluid simulation up here, press on cube 001. So this is the cube itself, and add a new material. And basically what we're going to do is, depending on the location of it, we're going to give it a different colour. So what we've got to do in order for that to happen is press Shift A or add, it doesn't really matter. Search for a gradient texture. So here it is. Now plug the colour into the base colour. So you see, this gives a sort of texture from black to white, but right now it's doing it on each individual Lego block, and we don't want that. We want it to go across the whole simulation. So what we've got to do for that is press Shift A, Object Info, add this in, and put the location to the vector. So now it's not doing it for each individual Lego block, it's doing it for the location of each Lego block. So this is a pretty handy trick to do when doing things like this. If you need to do anything like this, it's really easy way, otherwise you won't have to shade all the different ones separately. So now we've got this, we need to press Shift A as in a vector, no, not a vector, sorry, a mapping node. Mapping. And so this basically shows the location, rotation and scale of this texture we've used. So if we use the rotation, just scale that along to 90. So this is now going from up to down, which is pretty handy because we can have the bigger splashes to be white like foam and the smaller splashes to be more blue. So you can also mess around with the scale to give a bigger or smaller fade of colour between the two, and you can use the location of the X, Y and Z to move this around. So I'm going to place it around here, so the bigger splashes are whiter and the smaller splashes are darker. I think I'm going to mess around with the scale a little more just to give it a little bit more difference, like so. And now we can start adding colours to this. So press Shift A and add a colour ramp and plug that in here. So now we can start choosing the colours of our water. So use this, bring it from linear to constant, and we can start adding in blues and blacks. So get this black colour and lighten this a bit and set it to be like a darkish blue. So now we can keep adding in more colours for what we need. That's more of a purple colour. Blue. So go gradually from dark to light. Now press this add button to add a new one. This can be a sort of, I don't know, medium colour blue, so a bit lighter. Just choose the colours you need and keep adding them until you've got something you're happy with. You can slide them around to get them lower or higher, and just slide them around until there's something you're happy with. So I came up with this. I'm pretty happy with it. It's got a good range of colours going on, a good water simulation. So now we can go to the rendering side of things and make this look good. So go back to your layout tab along the top here and go up here and go to rendered view. As you can see, this is very dark right now, so we should probably add in a bit of sort of light. Press Shift A, add a light, and I like using the area light best because it gives that good studio look when rendering. So move it along, press this, and you can drag it so it's facing your scene. Then press S to scale it up. So now go down to the light settings and put the power up. Just drag it so you've got a good light source. Also, what helps giving that good studio look is going to the world settings, setting the background color to complete black. So also what I do is I duplicate the area light, press Shift D to duplicate, and just point it in a different location. Also, if you have a computer and you have the time to render and get really good results, switch your render engine from Eevee to Cycles. And if you have a graphics card, switch it from CPU over to GPU compute. So it's rendering with the graphics card now. If you get this grainy look, don't worry about it. You'll know about it if you're not new to Blender. So once you've done this, you're pretty much ready to render. But also another thing which I like to do is choose a cool background. Well, not really a background. So I press Shift A, Mesh, Cube. I just add a cube. press tab to go into edit mode, go up here to vertices select and press just on one vertex and press X to delete vertices. So this deletes most of the cube. I'll just go back into solid mode just so you can see. And now I can press A and I press Control B to bevel this, and I go down here to the bevel settings and turn this up a bit. But basically this is if it's to your liking. I do this because I love the way it looks once it's done, and it basically always works. It's a good solid background which never fails me. So yeah, once you've done this, go back into rendered view and just press S to scale it right up. I like going into the shading settings and just adding a material and making it a colour I like. I think I'm going to choose like a Lego yellow just for the occasion. But this basically always works and it hasn't failed me yet. We'll make it a bit brighter though. So this has given us a good setup. Click this to go to camera settings, or go to 0. Just press 0 on your numpad to go to camera settings, and you've got to fit the whole simulation in place. So go back a bit and press Control Alt 0 to go into to snap the camera to your current view. Just do that a few times till you have the whole simulation view, and you're basically good to go for rendering. So once you've done all this, you're basically ready for rendering, though I'll take you through the render settings just in case you've never done it before. So, like I've said before, if you have a low-end computer or you don't want to spend a couple of hours rendering this out, put your render engine back to Eevee. This is Blender's real-time render engine and it saves a lot on render time, but Cycles is more photorealistic and it helps a lot more and just gives generally better results. Also, if you do have Cycles enabled, go down here to denoising and enable both render and viewports. And also, if you have a higher end graphics card by Nvidia or any other big graphics company, enable optics on both of those, which will just give you that little finer touch. Also, if you have a ray tracing card, ray tracing is enabled by default, so you don't have to worry about that. Anyway, down to the settings here. This is these render output settings. Set your frame rate to something you like. If you've only done 200, the default 250 frames like I have, it'll be about, at 24 frames per second, it'll be about, I don't know, 10 seconds long, the simulation. But I'm pretty happy with that. If this is your first time doing a Blender render, it's okay. So put the resolution to something you like, 4K, 1080. Just look up what the dimensions are on the internet if you don't know them. I'm happy with 1080 for now. And also, this is very important, your output, save it to somewhere you know it'll be. Because if you don't save it and then you render it out for a couple of hours, you'll have to render it out again while saving it. So I'll just save it to downloads. Just click on that file button and then just click downloads. I like that. So just press accept. And file format, change it from PNG to either JPEG or any of these video files. I like FFmpeg video file. And if you have saved it to that, go to encoding and go to a video quality and set it to high quality. And now you're pretty much ready to render. Just make sure that you've saved your file. So to save it, press Ctrl S and save your Blender file to somewhere you know. So I'm going to call this Lego Water Blend. So I'll just save my file. Make sure to always save your projects throughout. Sorry, I haven't got into that habit yet. I probably should. And you're ready for rendering. So just go up here to render and press render animation. Just render it out. If you're using Eevee render engine, it'll probably take about, I don't know, about maybe half an hour. If you're using cycles to render out, it'll probably take about 2 hours. It depends on how fast your computer is really. But I'm happy with this. It's rendering out. Can leave it to render now. So yeah, this, just wait till this is finished, and once it's finished you can close it down. Make sure it's got all the way to frame 250. You can close it down once it's finished and it'll be saved to wherever you saved it to, and then you can watch your video. You can watch your video there of what you did. So like, subscribe. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. Tell me if the music was good. Maybe it was a bit annoying, but I hope you found this useful, and maybe you can integrate it into a few short films for Lego. And anyway, goodbye.